You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
He's got it! Oh, baby!
Every week, Travis Currah.
That's Grey Cup me, which is a different person.
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Oh, nearly intercepted! It is! And it's over!
Ready, set, hunt!
Thanks for pressing play on this episode of Two and Out. It's Travis Currah and Andrew from the Turf District. I think we must start it in an appropriate way with a royal wave.
I think that's amazing. Somebody lift me on their shoulders.
Yeah. Hopefully you got a strong back for me, brother.
Well, yeah, I know. Like,
we both got back problems.
Got to be careful with that 36-year-old rookie. You don't want him going to the six-game injured list.
Yeah, Jones told him that, Mr. Dean Faithful. That was a great quote, I thought.
Outstanding. It made me laugh. But I mean, but let me tell you, is there he's gonna do that every time now, right? He has to.
Has he done it before? Has it been seen in practice or?
No, he had mentioned it to us a while back, back kind of training camp. He said, I got to throw a Queen's wave in there at some point, and we all kind of laughed about it. But he was saving it for something like this, and it was perfect. And it was just, the timing was great. It was funny. Obviously, the GIF is going everywhere.
Yeah.
The Elks changed their avatar to that picture, which is hilarious. And you know what? For a guy that a lot of people had kind of written off early on because he was a 36-year-old rookie and just needed a global player kind of idea. They'd written him off that way. For him to have the success, because we've been talking to him throughout the season and really kind of cheering him on, and it's awesome to see him get that success because he deserves it.
Yeah, there's kind of there's been some rumblings that the team really just kind of has him there because of the global thing, and maybe they don't trust him that much because he's not a guy that's kicking the 53-yard field goals on a regular basis like some others across the CFL. So it was a feel-good moment Saturday night at Commonwealth Stadium. It's good to have you on the show. Now you're on 3downnation.com, Edmonton Sports Talk, still taking time for Two and Out, so I appreciate it.
Oh, hey, dude, whenever I get a chance to talk football with you, I'm going to take it. What do you think I am?
Hollywood Andrew, yeah.
No, not at all. I will say, though, that I made sure I shaved before I came on because I knew it was all on video. I wanted to look nice.
Me too.
Okay, good, yeah.
I want to bring this up. It was kind of some buzz before the game started this week. The third-party air quality testing that will now be in effect. It's kind of funny because wildfire season, I guess, technically goes until October, but it's kind of cooling down now. Thankfully, it seems many residents are able to head home here. But the Labor Day game in Calgary, yeah, it was pretty thick. I was in Regina and Calgary. I thought that the morning of in Regina was worse than Calgary. It's just my experience. Maybe I got acclimatized to it by this point. But I saw Dave Campbell from 630 Ched. If the Labor Day game doesn't happen, they would have to have decided a winner or a loser by basically having a mini game. Can you imagine?
Overtime mini game. Yeah. Although I can tell you right now, what I wished for is that they would have had to call the game with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. It was far enough. I mean, Saskatchewan got a win by lightning for that one time,
against
right?
Montreal.
For air quality. I mean, I think they should just go back and revise it and say that it ended at halfway through the third. That would have been fine. No, it's funny because that day, as it was happening, I mean, obviously I'm in Edmonton. I wasn't down in Calgary, but it was thick here too. So I was really wondering if they were going to have the game. Now, the notes came out afterwards that they were testing at field level and all those kind of things. And I'm glad now they've kind of clarified what the rule is. But yeah, could you imagine if they would have had to cancel it and then have a mini game beforehand and then play the rematch, the full game right after? That? I don't know. Whoever wins that mini game, though, has a serious advantage in the next game. because the other team be like still trying to recover from losing out of a 2-possession game. Like it'd be wild. Although I'd love to see it, just not with my team in it. That's the trick.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm trying to remember a couple summers ago in Edmonton, there were some pretty greasy air quality games that happened, and I thought they were worse than the one in Calgary. But this might be a thing going forward where we just have to deal with this every single summer. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if this does affect games, not only this season, but next season and beyond. We got to talk Friday night football, though. The Hamilton Tiger Cats winning 27-24. They have now won 10 straight against the Red Blacks, and I don't think I can understate how massive of a win this was for the Ticats. I think everyone had them written off. Everybody said, oh, short week, Red Blacks off the bye. Well, all of that was out the window when the Ticats, I think maybe in the first half, they were kind of getting their legs under them, but in the second half, they played great football. And look, it wasn't a pretty first half by any means, but the fourth quarter was an entertaining one to watch. And the Ticats are 4-2 on the road. The Red Blacks still haven't won inside the East Division. So, I mean, obviously a big loss for Ottawa, and they've kind of gone on a skid just when everybody kind of said, oh, maybe they're turning it around with Dustin Crum. And it's not like he was bad, but no. That's a big win for Hamilton.
It's a big win for Hamilton. It's a crushing loss for Ottawa because they had everything stacked in their favor as far as I was concerned. I looked at this game and thought, like you just said, Hamilton basically has 3 days rest in between games and a big game against Toronto, right? Not like a easy game that they had. Not that there's any easy games, but you know what I mean. Ottawa's coming off a bye week. Ottawa's playing at home. Like I was shocked that this ended up the way it did. I thought I didn't think it was going to be a pretty game, and I was right there. Yeah. But I did not see Hamilton coming out on top. I thought Ottawa's defense, that all the cracks are showing, which is odd because they were beginning of the year, the defense was holding them in the games. And now it's like, if you have a 15-yard pass you need to make against Ottawa, you're likely going to make it. And I feel the frustration of that fan base when like you can't win at home, like, and especially when you have these kind of odds. I thought that was pretty much a gimme, and well, as far as a gimme goes in CFL, but it was a really, really tough one to watch.
Well, and it's weird. It's like half the defense is performing well in Ottawa, the other half, the back half, isn't. The run defense, James Butler had 2.5 yards a carry, 35 yards on 14 carries.
Again, to be fair, he was just in 35 car wrecks 3 days before.
Yeah.
I thought about that because I put James Butler in my fantasy, and about halfway through the game, I'm like, that was stupid. What was I thinking? He's only on 3 days rest. Of course he's going to be beat up, and Ottawa's run defense is better than their pass defense. So that kind of sucked on my fantasy side, but it's got to suck for him. How do you, as a running back that gets hit a lot when you're carrying the ball, play games that close together? Like, it was tough.
And, you know, normally when you get an offense in second and long, that's a good situation for the defense.
That's the other thing. James Butler had, what'd you say, 2.5 yards average?
A carry.
Right. And Hamilton won the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That says all you need to know about the Ottawa secondary, pretty much.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best names in the CFL, so we got to give him a shout out. Stavros Katsantonis of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. A fumble recovery, an interception, and a big stop at the 1, all in the first half for the Hamilton safety. And following up that stop at the 1 yard line, the Ticats stopped the Red Blacks 3 times in a row, and that set the tone. that those Ticats were not going to be pushed over no matter how sore they were 5 days ago. But Katsantonis, what a performance. And that goal line stop on Nate Bahar, by the way,
Yeah.
who had some strong words for the Hamilton Tiger Cats 3 days before the game. Maybe it wasn't the best choice, Andrew.
Maybe not. Maybe he might have lit a fire, shall we say, on that side of the ball. I listened to your show from last week, and I agree with you. I love the fact that there are guys that are giving some real interviews. Do you know what I mean? I love being a
Not
little
the
more
political
candid.
safe stuff, you know?
Correct. Yeah. Oh, Hamilton's a good
Yeah,
team. And blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. Everybody says that. Great. Okay. Where's the guy that says, no, you know what? I hate that guy. I want to beat him up. But this is the problem. When you
Yeah.
say it, sometimes you have to take that foot and shove it farther into your mouth. And that's kind of what happened here. And it's one of the reasons that I can't I can't go full Valentine because I hate being wrong. I hate being like, oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna talk all this trash. And then, ooh, no, I paid for that one. So it's he tried it. Didn't work so well.
No, well, and I'm still blown away. Like, you look on the other side, and the Ottawa RedBlacks had quite the running game themselves. Devontae Williams had 146 yards. He added 69 yards on 4 catches.
Nice.
So over 200 yards from scrimmage. You're filling in nicely, by the way. And
You're welcome.
and they still just couldn't get the job done against the Ticats. Like, that loss has to hurt, obviously, and it feels like Crum, he looks like he still has some ways to go, but he's not looking, I think, bad.
No.
I think they've gotten away with what made him a bit magical earlier on, all those rushing yards, but he did have a touchdown. He did have 42 yards rushing, so he still did have some success on the ground. But where do the RedBlacks go from here? Is it just riding Crum to the rest of the season, and then next season kind of, I don't know, like, do you have to retool every single year? And are they sticking with Bob Dice? Now those questions are back again.
Oh man. So I know it's hard for Ottawa, especially for their fans, because their team has been so up and down. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
over the many years, right? Of having a team or not having it. We go back to the first iteration of the Rough Riders, and then them going down and then leaving, and then the Renegades come in, and then they're gone after a short stint, and now the RedBlacks. And they had some early success, of course, right? They got to the Grey Cup in 2015. They won in 2016, and it really built up the team. Now they've had obviously some steps back, and that happens. The one thing that I will say is I hope that they don't move on from Bob Dice, and that's not to say that I feel like some Ottawa fans may think that I'm saying I want them to continue to lose, and I don't. I want them to have some balance, and I want them to start winning. But I think the consistency goes such a long way, and it is tough when you have to go through all of the here we go again moments, especially when you're losing. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. All the losing at home, all that stuff, it sucks. But you want to have that consistency to some degree, because if you keep changing it all the time, then that guy's got to bring in all of his guys, and then you've got to wait for all of them to gel together, and then you have to. And I was saying the same thing this year with Chris Jones. Lots of people, when we're 0-7, 0-8, are saying, "Well, he's got to go. He's got to do this." I'm like, it was a 3-year plan when he came in. See the 3-year plan out. If it continued 100%, then we get to 3 years. It's not going fine, but I hope they do give some consistency there. We know Kahari Jones both has the ability to head coach, and he's good at an offensive coordinator position, but he's working with a guy who's a brand new rookie in the league, with not a lot of backup other than, he's got some support from Jeremiah Mazzoli as a veteran who isn't playing right now. I think you've got to kind of let them work out some kinks. It's not fun and it's not easy, but I think in the long run that'll pay off for Ottawa much better than trying to overhaul the entire thing.
Hamilton fans will say, you guys won the Grey Cup 5 years ago. Relax. We're in the 90s. And Taylor Powell, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns. I got to give a shout out to Tim White, man. 7 catches, 12 targets, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's got 15 catches, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns this week. In 5 days.
So does double count for fantasy? Anyway, guess not. Anyway, you know what the thing is, for all of his struggles at the beginning of the year, he's turned it around, and we're seeing that, especially in this last 3 weeks or so. He's really becoming the Tim White that we expected to see at the beginning of the year. So, and that only helps Powell. Mm-hmm. Right. When you look at Crum's success early on, it was Nate Bahar that was catching all of those tough long field plays and touchdowns and those types of things. And right now we see Tim White kind of picking up Powell, and it's kind of that part is actually kind of cool to see.
Yeah, that's with Duke Williams on the 6-game injured list. Whether it's injuries, drama, or both, we don't really know.
Hurt feelings.
Yeah, the Ticats flushed that, and they got a big win. I guess we'll talk playoff implications after the last game of the week, because Super Saturday, the first 2 games, really nothing to write home about. If you combine the scores between the winners and the losers, it was 90-16.
Wow, that's excellent math.
The Argos 10-1. Their best start to a season since Doug Flutie, and now they're looking at eclipsing the 1989 Edmonton team for the most wins.
No, it won't happen. No.
But
I'm kidding. It could happen.
It could. I think the Argos will finish 16-2. I think. But that didn't work for that 1989 team. I do not need to remind you, Andrew.
No, I know. They canceled the Grey Cup that year. I know. I know what happened.
One of the greatest games of all time does not exist in Andrew's world.
Nope. They canceled it that year, and I don't want them to have to cancel it this year. So no 16-2. That would be great. Yeah.
39-10. The final is the Argos stomp the Alouettes. Honestly, it is just the Argos start so fast, but the Alouettes helped them out here. 5 turnovers, including getting stuffed on 3rd and short. There were 3 fumbles. There was an interception from Cody. And Toronto makes you pay for those turnovers. They are the absolute kings in the CFL right now of doing that.
Well, and they're also the kings of getting the turnovers. Like that's the thing. They get them and then they make you pay for them. And I said this at the beginning of the season, that Argo defense, I wasn't sure about the Argo offense because I wasn't really convinced on Chad Kelly. Obviously, at this point, I'm eating those words and realizing
I don't think many people were.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But I knew that the defense was going to be good. And is it ever like that? It is hard to play against that Toronto defense. And we saw Calgary get all those touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. I thought, oh, okay, maybe they found something in the Toronto defense, but
you can pass on them. You can move the ball on them, but finishing drives is another story. Yeah,
exactly. Before you give it away. And that's the trick. They keep getting it back, whether it is interception or fumble or, turnover on 3rd down. Like they just find ways. And they're playing very clean football too. They're not getting a lot of those penalties that every other team is going, what the hell is that? Like they don't get as many of those. Right. So I think that it's going to be hard to stop them. I think, especially when you look at the rest of their schedule. I think there's they only have the one game against Winnipeg that maybe that you're right, but
that'll
the others
be a showdown.
the others, they're mostly playing the teams in that mid to low tier. And so I as much as I hate to say that 16-2 might be on the line, it might be. They are playing that well.
They have Ottawa twice. They've got Edmonton, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg.
Right?
And they have
Like,
Hamilton too. So we'll see.
well, but we know what they do to Hamilton. So
Yeah.
don't count that one. That one's a win. Yeah. The Elks have improved. I don't know if they've improved that much. So we'll say, Ottawa right now is kind of floundering. Unless they, because those are the ones though where you go, oh well, it's never going to happen, and then Ottawa pulls one out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
Toronto's like clinched the East final, and they're like, Cameron Dukes go.
Yeah, go try
some snaps. Yeah,
way to go, man. Here's your participation ribbon. Thank you for trying. Yeah, just hand it off to Ouellette over and over again. See what happens. Yeah,
it doesn't help when the CFL's leading receiver Austin Mack, 29 yards away from 1,000 on the year, gets ejected in the first quarter. Now, what did you think about that? Now, this will get me in trouble. I think we need to revisit the definition of a punch, because it was like an open. It was a strike. Okay, I get that.
It was a strike. It was a strike.
I guess I'm just questioning it because of what happened in the late game in the triple header. We'll get to that. But I guess I could see Austin Mack's frustration. The DB's not letting go. They wrestle each other to the ground. He pushes him off, and then there's a melee, and he gets booted out of the game. And what I thought at first, it was like maybe the CFL is seeing what happened in the Labor Day game between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, thinking, let's get control of this. You can't have those after the play melees, strikes, punches, whatever you want to call them. So it doesn't matter who it is. Austin Mack, leading receiver in the CFL, punted. Of course, that affects the Montreal offense, and you can't have that in the game. But I just want consistency, man. Like,
I know.
Let's get to it now. Reggie Bagleton and Ed Gainey, I think it was the third quarter. Now, Ed, if you go back and watch, he took a swing at him, and it was just a glancing blow. The camera catches the retaliation from Reggie, which was a great camera shot, because Dave Dickinson's over. What are you doing, Reggie? And the flag comes up.
Yeah.
But to me, it looked more violent than what Austin Mack did, and he remained in the game. So what are we doing?
Well, I think that's a thing that we have been saying for a while, though, is consistency across games. And it's hard to say that. I mean, I look at the thing from Austin Mack and think I would have expected that would have been like an objectionable conduct. This counts as a player misconduct foul. Do you know what I mean? And if he gets a second one, then he gets out of the game, right? And I think that same thing kind of needed to and did kind of happen in the late game. But if they're throwing Mac out in the first game, then why are they not throwing somebody out in the last game? And that's the part that you're, as a fan, you're going, well, that doesn't make sense. Like we could get into a whole conversation about what is PI, and we'll never get to the same answer. And that's unfortunate. It makes it a lot harder to be standing there. We could talk about just rough play, which we'll talk about in the Elks game too, where why is that not called? But this is like, I don't know. It's very interesting, and I don't know how they fix that without having refs as full-time employees. I think that's part of it, right? You have refs that know each other and they work in their groups, right? And they all have similar ways they look at things. And I know they do review things with each ref. Like I do know that it's not like they're just, like, oh, I only do this on Saturdays and that's it. I don't do any training during the week. I just show up and throw flags. Yay. Although it does feel like that sometimes. But what I am thinking is that there isn't this like your full-time job is to get all of these head refs on the same page of this is what this would be called, right? And they don't really have that ability at this moment. And I think that's what's making it hard for us as fans to say, okay, well, one ref is going to call this and the next ref is going to call it a little differently.
Like, do you need one replay guy? There's only 4 games a week. You'd think that the one guy would call it the same for Montreal as for Calgary. Like, if the one guy's seeing the play,
that's tough to say if the one replay guy is Bradbury, because it's going to be different every game anyway. Doesn't matter. I may still be a little PTSD on that. I'm not sure, but that's just saying. Yeah.
There's a key moment from this game, just the last one I want to highlight. Beginning of the third quarter, Montreal's trailing 23-7. They have a 77-yard drive. They're down to the 3rd and goal, and they kick the field goal. So instead of being down 16, yeah, that's my math, you're down 13.
Yep,
so,
you're right.
And then Montreal or Toronto gets the ball at the 40 instead of the 3, and Toronto scores anyway. So
right.
I don't know. I just like the math better if you don't get the 3rd and goal that Toronto taken over from the 3 instead of the 40, you know?
That's one of those ones that's going to be debated either way. But I do agree with you. 27-3, you haven't really put anything on the board. 3rd and 3. Like what now? The other part is, I guess it wasn't first down and Jason Moss kicked the field goal, which we all know he has done in the past. So I don't know, but it's a tough one. I agree with you though. You'd rather it just like if you don't get it, at least you're pinning them all the way down, and maybe then you can get the ball back with some field position to try and get, because it's not like if it's a lot close. If you're within 10, I totally get taking the field goal, take the points. Fine, you're a 1-score game, carry on, right? You're down 2 full touchdowns with 2-point conversions. What's the harm in taking a shot there?
Yeah, there was a similar score in situation in the Elks and Stamps game. So we'll have to talk about that too. Chad Kelly did not have a passing touchdown. He did have a rushing touchdown, but he was 21-28, 278 yards. AJ Ouellette, 19 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cameron Dukes had a rushing touchdown. The leading receiver for the Argos was Tommy Neild, just like we all drew up. 6 catches and 84 yards. Those Argos, they perform as a team. They've got the special teams going with Javon Leake. That defense makes plays. Yeah, they're fun to watch. Robbie Smith might have my favorite celebration in the CFL, but we won't do it on YouTube, as this is a family show. For the Argos...
Where's Brazilian Tie? He'd do it. Come on. We
for the Alouettes,
do it anyway. Yeah.
I should say Cody Fajardo, he 21-24, 236 yards. I think there was a stretch where he had 18 or 19 straight completions. It's not like he was bad.
No, he had a decent game, but what is the one thing that we say, or we have said for many years, about a Jason Moss run offense? And I love Jason Moss. I don't want to be, like I do like him as a coach. But it's amazing offense in between the 20s.
Yep.
But it has a hard time finishing, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is. We just talked about taking a very conservative call on a 3rd and 3 when you're down by 16. So is it that when they get inside the 20, they just are playing conservative to not turn it over, and then that's not getting them points? I'm not sure, but it definitely is something that has kind of plagued through the times that he's had. And you hope that they would sleep. Like, you read that stat line, you think, wow, this must have been a shootout.
Yeah.
Right. 6 points.
Yeah.
not
And
so good.
earlier in the game, first half, it's 3rd and short, and they go for it with Caleb Evans and get stuffed. So
Which maybe then scared them off of the 3rd and
maybe
3 later, right? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
Chandler Worthy ended up being the leading receiver for the Alouettes. 4 catches, 59 yards. And I guess the passing game became the rushing game because Walter Fletcher and William Stanback combined for 7 carries and 16 yards. So the short passes, short completions, and just not enough, obviously, first downs and scores. But back to the drawing board as it's Alouettes and Argos again this coming weekend. And the Owls are saying, yay, we got another chance. And they're also saying, oh, no, we have to play them again.
Austin Mack, or somebody is going to go in there and tell Austin Mack, no touchy.
Yeah.
No touchy. Just go out there and run. Go catch the ball. The only thing you're allowed to touch is the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
No one else. Yeah.
I've noticed, I don't know what happens on the field, but teams try to aggravate them. You saw the Chris Edwards incident earlier in the year, walking up to Austin Mack and shoving him over after the game. So
now,
what's going
really
on with this guy?
That's Chris Edwards. He does it to
true.
everybody. He's just a jerk. There's
That's
nothing
true.
you can do about it. Like, that doesn't matter. But anyway, but you're right. They are trying to get under his skin. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they see something there that they can get under his skin and limit him that way. Who knows? Now, I've been trying to avoid talking about this game.
I wondered.
Up in Edmonton, what are your thoughts on the Banjo Bowl? It seems like, or the name, I should say, it seems like certain people and organizations, maybe the organization itself, the Rough Riders, trying to erase the Banjo Bowl name. I say embrace it.
I think it was funny in the first place, and it's kind of funny that it stuck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it was just something out of the blue, and then it stuck. So it's not it's not a racial slur. Like, what? Just keep it as Banjo Bowl. Like, I get that the whole, if you read the entire quote where it came from, that it would be that it's not the kindest thing, but Banjo Bowl doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just, I just think that it's funny. And especially after you say, this is your Labor Day weekend game, then it follows up by the Banjo Bowl. And here we've never had a saying like that, but it's always been the Labor Day and the Return Classic, and it's always been called that. So I don't, if they said, oh, well, we can't call it the Return Classic because it's not really I'm like, well, that's dumb. Like, just call it that. So I think the only way they ever get away from calling it that is if they didn't have the rematch. And I think that would also be a way that people would be upset, because it is a 2-weekend thing that is, at least both teams are playing on the same number of short days. And the rivalry is there. People go down to Calgary, people come up to Edmonton, same thing, Regina, Winnipeg, right? And it's a big deal to be part of those games as fans. So I don't think they should change it anyway.
They've made it special in Winnipeg. It sells out.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who
Maybe
cares?
Rider fans want to change because they haven't had a lot of success in that game. This was no exception.
Thanks to Jacques Cartier on Twitter for correcting me. The Riders last won this one in 2018, but they got smashed here. 51-6. There is absolutely, we'll talk about, I guess, the performance from the Bombers, but it was just pure dominance right from the get-go as they do clinch a playoff spot. This game legitimately in my nightmares, though.
I bet.
I was laughing in my sleep, and my wife had a chat with me, and she kept record of it, and she updated me on it before recording the podcast, and I was laughing. And she says, "What are you laughing about? I don't remember any of this." And I go, "That's a football thing." And she goes, "Who was playing?" I go, "Winnipeg and Saskatchewan." And then she goes, "Well, who's the better team?" And I say, "Winnipeg." And she smells blood in the water. She's like, in his sleep, he's going to admit he's a Bomber fan. So she goes, "Who are you cheering for?" And I go, "Saskatchewan." And she goes, "Oh, Winnipeg's just better." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And back to sleep I go. So I don't know if it was Willie Jefferson being on top of Kean Schaefer Baker as soon as the handoff was given, or it was number 3, Dalton Schoen, but those Bombers are living in my dreams, man.
Well, to make you feel better, I have a feeling that they invade a lot of nightmares for people. That we had that game on at the tailgate prior to the late game, and so we have it on the TV, and we're sitting back watching, and then we had and we're just kind of watching the play. We weren't really looking at the score. Look down, what's the score, like 46-6 or whatever it was, and then Mike goes, "Yeah, it's still the first half." I'm like, what?
42-6 at halftime. So
what? Holy cow, that was ridiculous. Like,
I think
yeah, they had to prove a point.
What's wild here, the Riders had 1 turnover. It's not like they were just throwing pick sixes left and right. It was just...
Didn't Claris throw 5 touchdowns in the first half?
Yeah, he was 18 of 21 for 319 yards and 5 touchdowns. Brady Oliveira had 8.6 yards a carry, 154 yards. He added 57 yards receiving. Dalton Schoen, the hat trick, 5 catches, 104 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kenny the King Lawler, 104 yards on 4 catches and a touchdown. It was just pure dominance. I don't know what else you could say about the game. The Bombers came out with something to prove, and they were mad after the Labor Day loss. They were mad after what happened, and I think they've been quite mad about some of the conversation that's been surrounding the Bombers. They're not as dominant. Maybe they're getting a little old. And I've heard the rumblings on Twitter. I think it's ridiculous. Zach Collaros is an average quarterback. Anyone could win with the Bombers. And, well, I don't think average quarterbacks, I don't care what the Riders did or what they put on the field, would be able to do that in one half of football.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. This is not like Zach is a good quarterback behind a great offensive line. And that combination is why you see what you do. Now, this year, have they been a bit more inconsistent than they have been in the past few years?
Yep.
Sure. But the one thing I will say is that they have kept their core together and they're still winning. But other teams are now adapting to a little bit to what they're doing. So, yes, they can have a game like this where they just blow everything out, everything that everything they touch turns to gold, and they find the right way. There's other games where they just seem to not be on the same page, and I think that's new for this year. But overall, yes, the team is getting a bit older because, like I just said, they've kept all the core together, and so that's been at least 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. So any player, even if you started when you joined the Bombers at 25 and were a big deal, well, you're now just on the other side of 30, or possibly just on the other side of 30. So, so that is happening a little bit, but overall, yeah, no, they're still a great team and still a high benchmark in this particular league at the moment. Toronto's playing great. They're definitely, 1-2, 1-1A between the two of them. But yeah, Winnipeg, when they get fired up, which I think they did this week, this is what happens.
Winnipeg, they are now set to play the Ticats, and then they got a bye, and then they have the Argos. So we'll see what they do for the rest of September. As for the Riders, I don't think anybody picked them to win. I think everybody thought they were kind of going to get crushed. It's not an excuse to come out and really Well, once things get away from you, it's almost like you're just trying to survive. And it seems like they didn't have any major injuries. So, I mean, that's a positive. They're coming off wins against Winnipeg and BC, which were massive wins for the team. And look, Jake Dolegala, he walked into something that, like, they're going to have to beat Winnipeg if they want to get to the Grey Cup. And the atmosphere at the Banjo Bowl is probably more wild than even the West Final. So
fair. But just a question. Do you think that, because Jake Dolegala playing at home had that success, right?
he did, yeah.
BC and Winnipeg. Do you think that it's kind of his first real game outside of Mosaic, right? So I wonder if that played a bit of a role. It's he is a brand new quarterback, and yes, he's had some great success up front, and he looks like he could play very well, and he's a super nice gentleman, bending down to talk to Britt Dort, which is awesome, and scored lots of points with me. I loved that he did that. It was so cool. But you have to think now there's 2 full games with tape on him, and now he's going out to play in other stadiums and has different, maybe not so much support when he goes to another stadium. I know Rider fans travel well, but the support will be different, right? So so I just wonder if that played a bit of a role in that. And also then I just wish that you were on the road next week. But we'll talk about that later.
I think that's going to be a fascinating game. It's how do the Riders respond from that and against a team that kind of has momentum and really nothing to lose here. Let's talk about that. The Edmonton Elks beating the Calgary Stampeders 25-23. Edmonton ends a 5-game losing streak to the Stampeders and has now won 2 in a row at home, but it started rough for the Elks.
Started rough that is an understatement, my friend.
Well, and I'm watching the game and I'm kind of wondering, what am I going to say to Andrew? And I was like, well, Dickinson and crew just had the team better prepared. And I think that's still true. They had a better game plan than the Elks. And I mean, what did Trey Ford have through 3 quarters? 21 yards passing, 11 in the first half?
Correct. Yeah.
So
like, and they were forcing him in to pass.
Yeah.
And somehow mostly keeping him in the pocket. Like he wasn't able to break out and get those giant runs that he was getting on Labor Day. Right. So I wasn't sure, because that first drive from the Elks ended in that massive run from Kevin Browning to get the touchdown.
They started fast.
Okay. All right. They're going to do the same thing as last Monday. But then it just kind of fell apart. And the fact that they were forcing them to throw and then covering everybody downfield, it just left Trey Ford with not a lot of options. But one of the things that Trey said at the end of the game was that when they did the turnaround, they started to pass on first down. And he said obviously teams know we were mostly running on first down. And when they didn't know when the pass was coming, it helped the Elks. But the first almost fully 3 quarters was painful. I'll be honest, because I did text some of my Stampeder friends at halftime and said, congrats on the sweep, because we're not here. Like, they're not playing tonight. They're not in it. They don't seem to be, they don't seem to have the same drive. They got the first touchdown and then just thought they'd coast, or I don't know what it was. But I'm not upset to be wrong either.
Well, and I told my wife a lot of the things that you were saying. I'm like, they're just, especially through 3 quarters, they're just predictable. It's the run, and Trey said it. He said it's 9 guys in coverage on second down, and then
on second and long too. Right? Yeah. So.
And what I had, and look, we talked about the honesty in interviews with Nate Bahar. Trey, really, after the second interception he threw, he said, I felt awful. I felt like a terrible person. And it really felt for the guy.
Yeah.
But then it's always how you respond. And he just able to turn it on in the fourth quarter with the help, I think, of his offensive coordinator and the play calling from Jarius Jackson. And I also said to Taylor, I said, this is going to be the opposite of Labor Day, And that's what happened with Calgary. They went safe and conservative with their play calling, much like Edmonton did in the fourth quarter in Calgary. So it was these games almost completely mirror each other. It's completely bizarre.
It was bonkers. And the other part of it is, and I know we should bring it up because some Calgary fans will bring this up as well. There was some questionable penalty calls in this game. Yeah. There was also some very questionable non-penalty calls. Throwing down Trey Ford in the first half and no call, and that turned into a punt, right? There's this, we already talked about this hitting and whether that was objectionable or what that counts for. The pass interference in the last minute was it was pretty ticky-tack. I'm gonna say, although if they're calling it the week before, which they were, then they call so now we get the consistency we want, but it's consistency in a bad call. I don't know.
Well, it gets so frustrating because after Labor Day, these wins are just harder to come by. The games are closer, and they almost feel like they're not completely decided on one call or two calls, but it doesn't help. And
no.
I still think the one in the end zone that Edmonton got called on Labor Day was a dumb call. And this one here that helped out the Elks was also. And then it's one of those things where, is there enough evidence to overturn the call on the field?
Right. But the trick is that the one even in the Labor Day game that was Bratton, and it was Hakunavanu. I can never say that guy's name.
Hakunavanu.
Thanks. Bless you. When he's coming back towards the ball because the ball is severely underthrown, Bratton is already in his position, and
that one was thrown behind the receiver. This game it was short,
right. And so I guess they're just calling it, but there's you'd like them to look back and go, look, if it's thrown 3 yards short, then both calls should have been no call, in my opinion. But
I agree.
But yeah, it's not that I'm complaining at this particular moment, but I was complaining on Tuesday.
Yeah, I guess now. The calls even out over the course of a season. You could have made the case for Gino getting called for OPI on the play before as well. Roberson was on Gino for most of the game, and then as the game went on, Gino got the better of that matchup, but Trey performed well in the battle. Gino was not a difficult assignment, but also throughout the game lost a big target in Stephen Dunbar that has become reliable, especially in the red zone for the Elks over the past few weeks, and now on my fantasy roster with 2.6 points. So I'm like, what's number 7 doing down there?
Yeah, mine too. I was like, oh, come on.
Did you catch Micah Always halftime interview?
I did not. No, I haven't, because I was at Westivus. So tell me about this, because I haven't heard that yet.
Well, he was also very honest, and he basically said they're taking their style out of the Winnipeg playbook with trash talking. And he mentioned Stanley Bryant by name, and it was like, wow.
Really?
Yes, and this is right before the half. Micah Alway, he was very fired up. And then, look, man, to me, it looked like intent to injure on Trey Ford. Put his head down, threw out the elbow a little bit. That's a dangerous play. And I wonder, now that came in the fourth. I wonder if early, the hit that Trey took at the end of the first half from Cam Judge that winded him, kind of slowed him down for the third until the fourth, where he's like, well, I got to deal with the pain here. He seemed like he wasn't running as much or trying to run as much after he had the wind knocked out of him. And I think those hits take tolls on guys more than we realize, right?
Oh, 100%. But I think, I don't know if that was more the case or more just, we have to remember that this is Trey Ford's seventh start, and he didn't even make it through one of those. He only made it to the second quarter in one of those games. So I think when you get kind of drilled like that, there whether you want to or not, there's got to be a little bit of, I don't want that to happen again. Do you know what I mean? But when the game's on the line, and here's where I find that, like, obviously he got it out of his head. We can talk about two kind of redemption stories in this game. Trey Ford, not really connecting, throwing the 2 interceptions, all those things. And then here we are, there's 4 minutes left, I believe, in the fourth quarter, 3rd and 1 on Edmonton's side of the field, and it's a run option play, and he pulls the ball and runs to the left for 24 yards, and Cam Judge just got him, or he's still running. He would have, and at the moment when he got around the corner and he had all that space, I actually turned to my wife and said, if he scores this, he's gonna get a statue, because he's like I thought he was gone. And but the ability to then take that into his own hands and do that and connect on the pass, I believe it was the 2 passes later, was the one to Dylan Mitchell in the end zone. Like, he recovered, right? And same thing with Dean Faithful. He misses the convert. He's beaten himself up about it, goes off to the sideline, collects himself, hits the next 2 field goals, the one with zeros on the clock to win. And it was a cool redemption for both of them, as they're both so young in this league. One actually is young and the other one not as much, but still young in the league. And so it was cool to see that growth too, right? So.
And maybe Judge's exit from the game was big in the fourth quarter comeback from the Elks. He was on Trey all game long. Got to him a few times, and then took some friendly fire. Another linebacker makes contact with Judge, and I don't know if he hurt his neck or something like that, but he did walk off the field.
He was upset though.
He
was
bounced
upset.
his helmet, which is kind of dangerous, but he was mad. But
was it Micah Alway? Because that would have been a little bit funny. I shouldn't have said that. I take that back.
Trey Ford in the fourth quarter alone, 12 for 14, 144 yards and a touchdown. After that second interception, he could have folded, and I was worried that they were going to start warming up other quarterbacks on the sideline. So credit to the coaches for letting him get back out there and sort it out. Credit to him for rebounding as well. Those Stampeders, like, they had every opportunity to put this game away, and then they went safe. I thought they had a 7-yard run with Kadeem Carey late in the game. All they needed was a few first downs to wrap it up, and then they went predictable on 2nd and 3. They got stuffed, so credit to the Elks defense as well, because they got Trey Ford the ball twice within the last 2 minutes or so, 2.5, 3 minutes. But this almost didn't happen because that 2-point conversion in which the Elks weren't successful on. So Geno Lewis goes to the locker room. I didn't know this. Goes to the locker room. He had some equipment issue.
It doesn't tell anybody.
So they only had 11 guys on the field. Matty Arsenault's, what's going on?
He's freaking out. He's like all these things. He's going nuts and he's Manny's probably angry too, because he's like, this is our shot. Where is everybody? And then, Forbes Montbleau comes kind of trotting on after the timeout, like, oh yeah, right. And Manny's like, what the frick? He's doing his best Yosemite Sam impression. It's amazing. And then you see Geno come running down the sideline. I'm like, oh, I know what happened here. Whoops.
So then there was a procedure I think they took, or offside?
There was a procedure, but that was after they had called the timeout first to try and get enough players on the field. Then they got the players on the field. Then they took a procedure
And
backed it
then
up. Yeah, and then blew it, and then had the and then they did challenge.
So both timeouts gone on the one play.
Correct. And no timeouts for the rest of the game. And I thought, I remember saying, that's a silly challenge because they're not going to overturn it. And I've looked at it now afterwards. I can see why Jones challenged it.
Well, we don't know what PI is, so you might as well take a chance.
Correct. But the trick is that I don't know, because I looked at that and thought, it's those ones never go the way you want it to. Like they never do.
Yeah.
And now you have no timeouts, and I'm like, that is gonna burn us. And it almost did, if it wasn't for the fact that AC Leonard stopped Kadeem Carey on that 2nd and 3 and actually had him lose a yard. Like, we wouldn't be talking about the Queen's wave or anything at this point, right? Because that would have been deadly.
Dean Faithful even missed an extra point. So coming back at that end of the game there, the pass interference, the missed OPI, a lot of breaks went Edmonton's way, but breaks have gone Calgary's way on Labor Day as well. I guess we're all even after 2 games here.
Something like that. Yeah, we'll say something like that. Yeah.
But
Calgary
you know
still
what?
gets away with more. Come on, it's Calgary. We know that. Yeah.
I think I got to say credit to Jones, and he even kind of said it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Other than Luches, Purifoy, and Ed Gainey, almost everybody in the secondary is a rookie, right?
Yep. Yeah, he did say actually in his post-game chat, it was actually quite funny because Cam Tate was there asking questions, and he said, "Did you think that the penalties are because your secondary is so young?" And Chris Jones says, "Yeah, like there's basically 5 rookies that are rotating into that secondary," and he goes, "Yeah, like." They're either going to make a huge play or they're going to take a penalty. And we just kind of have to take that. Like, that's what happens when you have young players. And most of this year, Jones has been referring to them as kids, right? The kids did really well. And he's been really kind of making sure that people understand that this is a very young team, and which they are. There is a lot of rookies or second year players in that starting lineup. And so he is constantly saying that. Now, quite funny because I don't know if you know Cam Tate, but he has cerebral palsy, and he's been a reporter forever, and he's a comedian as well, which is awesome. But then, Jones said, yeah, well, it happens. We have all these rookies, and then Cam says, "Oh, I can make myself available." All had a good laugh about it. It was kind of nice to have that post game. But it was, you see that you see Bratton make like an unbelievable stop, and then the next play he's got to hold somebody's jersey. Like it just it happens when you have young guys that are learning the game and learning the ins and outs. When they were supposed to have Aaron Grimes there to help show them what the ropes are, but he's been out for the season. Ed Gainey is helping to teach them. Luches Purifoy is helping to teach them, but they still need time to learn it when you've got Bratton, Gray, and we had Marcus Lewis until he got hurt on Saturday, all basically in their first year of either professional football or first year in the CFL for sure. So it is going to make an impact on the field.
Now, the Stamps had their opportunities. There was a big, long play that went off the fingertips of Mark and Michelle. He might have been gone, or at least had a big, long gain on that play. Reggie Bagleton arguably could have been kicked out of the game. They had an opportunity when the Elks took too many men on a punt when CJ Sims wasn't off the field, when Purifoy was... So they had their opportunities to win this game. They just couldn't get it done. Kadeem Carey, 77 yards. Jake Mayer, 21 of 29, 210 yards and 2 touchdowns. I still think that the bad decisions that we've been seeing from Jake at times haven't happened the last few weeks. And it's been said that Dave Dickinson has been more involved in the play calling. Maybe that is helping Jake Mayer a little bit here, but they're going through growing pains there. As for the Elks, Geno Lewis, that's why they pay him the big bucks. 5 catches, 89 yards for Geno. He was the leading receiver, but Kevin Brown, 15 carries, 143 yards, 9.5 yards a carry. Trey Ford had over 10 yards a carry. He added 82 yards rushing himself. And Trey could be 5-0. They were up 22-0 against Winnipeg. They had the big lead on Calgary and Labor Day. Here we are. He's 3-2, and I got to give credit to Chris Jones, like, for how dejected the fans have been, for the negativity surrounding the Edmonton Elks. They look like a team. Like, if they were a team that is.
Did you know any other team that goes 0-9 and they're like, oh yeah, no, we're still going to show up next week and we're going to do great? What?
Yeah.
Like, and a bunch of young guys, and they're going to be fine. Although I go back to one comment you said earlier where you said, hey, he let Trey you were watching for other quarterbacks to warm up, and I'm like, well, if we've learned anything this year, once the quarterback's in, they stay in. It's gonna takes a bye week and a change in offensive coordinator before we change a quarterback. So we knew that was probably, but you're not pulling Trey out at that point. You got to let him work through it, and he did, and it's exciting to see them start playing as the team that they kind of expected. And so this is what I was saying. We were talking at the beginning of the show with Bob Dice, right? Sometimes that consistency pays off, and it's just a matter of getting the same voice, the same, and obviously he has not lost the room, right? So
yeah, the celebrations you see from these guys,
right?
They still care.
Absolutely. 100%. They still care. And as they're coming off, they, win or lose, they're talking, they're with each other. And when they're talking to fans and or media or whatever, it's like, yeah, well, this is where we had the problem and we've got to correct that. But once we get that corrected, we're going to be better. And they seem to be getting there. So the defense, I think, I saw a few things there today saying, he could be 5-0 if his defense could hold a lead. Well, part of that is the offense making sure that they don't burn the defense out.
Yeah.
So I think it is a team thing. But you're right. There is a chance they could be 5-0, and just the fact that they're more competitive is great as a fan.
Now, let's talk about playoff. Well, first, I'll mention CFL Podcast Fantasy League. I got pumped by Ben from the X's and Argos podcast. He was the number 1 scorer on the week. He had over 170 points.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. 170 points.
Yeah.
I saw it come up, but I didn't.
So no shame in that.
His team was. Yeah, no, he can't. No.
I still had 120. Despite one of my guys getting ejected and Stephen Dunbar having one catch injured for 16 yards. So
maybe you'd have caught him if it wasn't for that.
I could have.
Well, let's not hold out
a little bit closer anyway.
Points, but closer, yes. Yeah, fair.
Now, some people are writing Calgary off here for playoffs. I'm not. Now, I think with Hamilton's win, the crossover's out the window. And I actually think that Hamilton could finish second here. They're 5-7. Montreal is 6-6, and those two teams play in the last week of the regular season. So now Calgary, I think their path to the playoffs is by catching Saskatchewan, and those two teams play next month. Saskatchewan could easily lose to Edmonton. It could easily go one way or the other, I think.
I don't know if I'd say easily, but I'm going to say it will be a competitive game.
They beat Edmonton by 1 with Trevor Harris.
and wasn't the other one by 2?
It was
because they couldn't push it in at the 1. This is a completely different team, right?
Exactly. So I don't know what we're gonna get.
But not that Saskatchewan's the same either. They got Dola Gala, right? So and they've got guys that, they have Schaefer Baker back. They have, so very interesting. That game could go either way.
Now, Edmonton's been shut out twice, and Saskatchewan has a worse point differential on the season. Minus 105.
Wow. All right. Well, I had not picked up on that stat, but I do appreciate that you brought it up while I'm here.
Edmonton's negative. They're in the 90s, but they've been
still.
I think Calgary could still catch Saskatchewan.
They could. I would say that this loss, it's a blow to their playoff run. That's for sure. But I can't remember what the actual stat was, but I don't know that there's a time that both Alberta teams were out of the playoffs. And I don't know if there ever was a time that happened. Like one or the other has always been in, or both. Right. So it's kind of wild to think that this split could actually make that happen, which I don't want it to happen. Don't get me wrong. I'd kind of like to, I'd rather see a green team in than a red, but that is a stretch. I
was going to say thanks, man.
Massive stretch. Yeah, no, that is not what I was saying. Yeah, that is not. Yeah, that's like when we had Ryan on last week, and he said that that it's that Winnipeg, he wants them to get fat and sassy so that they're ripe for the picking in the playoffs. And Mike said, so you heard it here first. Ryan says BC and Toronto Grey Cup. Outstanding. Great response by Mike. Points for him. Nothing like Superman Fike. Anyway, I do think that I don't think Calgary's playoff hopes are gone. I just think that yes, it took a beating. They're gonna have to really step up in this last bit. And one of the things that has kind of plagued Calgary this year is consistency, right? Play one game lights out and the next game disappear. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over these last few weeks. But like you said, there's some key matchups that are coming up that are going to be very, very cool to watch.
Yeah. Saskatchewan, Calgary, October 13th, Edmonton, Saskatchewan this weekend. And then the end of the year, Montreal, Hamilton. There's still Toronto, Winnipeg. There's a lot of fun to be had before the playoffs get here. Andrew from the Turf District podcast. Hey, where else can we find you, man? You're on every Taco Tuesday, right?
That's yes, every Turf District Tuesday we are on the YouTubes. Come subscribe there and join in the chat while we talk throughout the podcast. We do record it live, so and we do take some of the questions, put them into the show, but then after the show we come back on for overtime and just chat football with whoever's in the chat. So join us for that. It's a ton of fun. Our show usually comes out on all your podcatchers on a Thursday, and now on Thursday nights at 8:00 on edmontonsportstalk.com. You can join in and listen to us on there as well. So it's kind of cool that it's growing slowly but surely.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. You can like, comment on YouTube, and hey, throw us a toonie a month on Patreon as well. I'm not begging.
I don't blame you at all. That's like my little jar at tailgate. It's okay. Like, you don't have to put anything in, but boy, this food costs a lot of money, Like, holy. Do you know how much it costs to do tacos in a bag for 45 people? It's a lot of people. It's a few dollars.
Yeah, no doubt.
Luckily, lots of people are very generous.
You must be the house that everybody wants to go to on Halloween.
I don't give out tacos in a bag.
I was going to say,
Travis
I know where I'm going.
I saw that coming too. God, amazing.
Brazilian Ty will be here with me to get you ready for week 15, and he's going to have a big announcement for Two and Out Nation as well. We'll talk to you later this week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.